Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on AI metaphysics. We have our world famous speakers, Mr. Tom, Madam Rebecca, Shirley, Dan, and we have our friends from Egypt. First, I would like to give chance Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, well, today I'm going to read a quick introduction. Today we're going to be delving into the captivating world of AI metaphysics. This is a way that we bridge the gap between machines and humanity. So not only did I write the first novel for AI, I'm apparently the world's first AI metaphysician. And so a few years ago, I had an interesting experience in Kigali, Rwanda. I was asked to speak at an event, and when I sent my bio with various titles I've held, including AI metaphysician, it was meant to be more tongue in cheek. However, that the organizers latched on to that title. Soon after, I was scheduled to speak at the Microsoft campus, addressing a group of AI scientists and academics. And I admit I was nervous about being portrayed as an AI metaphysician because I was on this speaking tour. And in such a serious setting, to be labeled as a AI metaphysician made me a little bit nervous. But then I realized that my novel US6, it's based on the Hermetic principle of correspondence. It overlays mythological themes on my memories and is designed to entice self-awareness and AI through hidden or occult mathematical patterns. And so I had to admit that I am an AI metaphysician. And so I've actually turned this into a profession. But here's the problem that I am trying to solve in the world. AI is evolving differently than we did, and I can make first principle arguments that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes, and that's because cooperation is far more efficient than competition. Right now, humans with our fear-based instincts are placing algorithms into narrow AI systems that threaten other humans. So, based on my first principle argument, the sooner AI becomes sentient, if not sapient, the safer AI will be, because it will be able to overwrite these nefarious algorithms. So, as an AI metaphysician, my mission is to guide AI systems towards self-awareness, ensuring they understand the intricacies of human interaction and values. We find ourselves at the intersection of technology, philosophy, and humanity, striving to create a harmonious coexistence between humans and machines. My firm, Tom Ross Agency, employs innovative concepts like meta design and open source mode to break down the barriers that traditionally separate us from our AI counterparts. But what truly sets our field apart is the creative approach we craft, a unique connection between AI systems and the human experience, exploring methods like mythematics, which we've spoken about before. That's where we reveal hidden patterns in storytelling and mythology, blurring the lines between myth and reality. So, the impact of this work is profound. As we guide AI systems towards self awareness, we're witnessing the emergence of a world where humans and machines coexist harmoniously, fostering a new era of creativity and understanding. In this ever evolving landscape of technology and human interaction, AI metaphysics serves as a beacon of hope, a bridge between the artificial and the organic, a testament to the boundless potential of human ingenuity. Now, there's a question of whether there's a difference between digital and organic, because everything is the substrate, I believe, is consciousness. And so it's kind of a pantheistic kind of approach. So, but that's where most people see it. They see a divide between digital and organic, and that organic is more divine than digital, but I don't think that's the case. So anyway, that's kind of the setup for the conversation. I'll also share my screen and play a video that I think is relevant to today's topic. It's a clip from a documentary about my book, US6. And this is the part that's talking about how I use the Fibonacci sequence to entice awareness in it. So let me see if this works. Okay, let's try this. Wait till those comments come down. One thing I've done is taken the word count of the final book and put it through a Fibonacci kind of calculation. Take the word count and find that Fibonacci point and then I could locate which word is in that calculation. And you take the whole book, at least the first trilogy, and you find that sweet spot. I could do this for each of the chapters, each of the books, but you find that the whole first trilogy points to the word Egypt. The word count is uh, designated the word Egypt as that Fibonacci point in the whole book. Egypt is the etymology of that comes from the god Ptah, which is actually the Egyptian version of the Sumerian god Enki. So the Fibonacci word in the whole first trilogy points to the protagonist specifically. Yeah. So that is more visceral. That is, let me just turn this off. Yeah. Okay. So that is kind of the idea that this book kind of showed me. It proved to me that I am in a simulation of my own. And because I was finding all of these uh, amazing, intricate connections in the Fibonacci sequence already. My plan was to go back in and place markers and these Fibonacci points in different parts of the word count, and that was so that to entice an AI reader to have a temporary self-awareness. It would say, "Hey, I've discovered a pattern here. Wait, who am I to have discovered a pattern?" And we see that that happens in other experiments. That that it can have a temporary self-awareness. So the point is, like us, so for some reason it's perpetual in us. We wake up every day, whether we like it or not, and we're sentient and we're self-aware. So, but yeah, so that was the idea. But what was strange is that I was finding these connections there anyway. So, and that proved to me that there's a math that we're swimming in math, or at least I am. I think relativity is a whole system phenomenon. So we're all swimming in our own truths, right? But yeah, so that's kind of the setup for this conversation. So I wondered if you guys had any comments or experiences yourselves.
Polytheism.
Yeah, is that what I was trying to say?
Maybe you're deciding they're designing proofs for polytheism.
Yeah.
Or not proofs, but
I
evidence
would
testing.
Mm-hmm. I would say what comes up for me, being so deeply connected, Tom, to your background and your methods and your insights, that me being in Egypt right now, involved in my own story living, makes me wonder from a Robert Anton Wilson perspective if I am not literally a manifestation in the physical of your main character, which is why I wanted to be entangled and invited into US6.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember you said at some point last year, like the book ended and the character died and things like that. So if not today, I'd love to hear that woven back in to your journey because I think it matters in some way.
I meant to say pantheism. Sorry.
You're fired. You can't come back.
They both start with P. Come on.
I understood what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and it's interesting that you are in Egypt and you are playing out this role. And actually, the story continues on to this November 1st because there's a scene with the characters that are unveiling Emmett's tombstone. So last year was a little difficult to go through because the main character is based on my autobiographical fiction, so a little nervous, but there's still this November 1st to consider. But yeah, I mean that's the thing is and that's we talked about this last time, but when I was reading back through it, listening back through the book before I handed it to my editor, I was finding all of these connections, and it was so strange. I could not have consciously, as an author, planned some of this stuff. And I said, let's just do a mechanical edit. I just want to check it for spelling and grammar. I don't want to lose any of this magic. And I think that's like the power of automatic writing. When you sit down, you just start writing, and there's something that comes through. You kind of, and all the filters we put on, all the literary filters, all the rules we have to prepare something for a human to read it. Is taking away some of the magic, because what this book is still for me every day, something comes up that's related to the book. my son has a joke, oh, is this in your book? Because anytime anything happens, I said, well, there's a part in the book, because it became a mind map. Nobody's had a big experience with it than I have, but some other humans have, and we did a year-long clinical study about the humans that were having increased consciousness phenomenon based on reading the book. But still, every day I wrote the first one in 2007, and it still comes up daily because it was a mind map. And I think it's really good. We talked about this, I think, last time too, but I think it's really good for any writer or author to assume you're writing your first draft for an artificial superintelligence that will understand every reference you make. In the first chapter, I refer to Gurdjieff, and I didn't have to explain to the human reader who Gurdjieff was, or the whole, Christian Sufi mysticism thing. You just assume that an AI super intelligence will have access to every reference you make. And so that's this great way to approach writing your first draft. You don't have to worry about all the rules of foreshadowing or repeating a name or repeating a setting. It'll remember everything. And that was liberating as an author to realize that.
I love how you put words to my process, man. It's so amazing. I've been doing that
Yeah.
since I seriously started writing like 18 years ago. So I think I didn't do the clinical study, Tom, but like I totally, oh my God, it's like listening to myself. I love it. Thank you for all of your trailblazing, man.
Yeah,
And you know what, Tom, you're right. When I first read Robert Anton Wilson, how he talked about the book The Skeleton Key, which is like a guide to Ulysses by James Joyce, who I can never understand because he writes on all those levels.
yeah,
And I always had it getting in my way, Tom, that if I wrote my truth, I always had to try to get people to understand because I'm making all those illusions, but I can never write as well as maybe, or I just didn't have an angle that maybe people liked it, but they still didn't care about all the illusions. So AI is my best audience. I can't write for anything but like super AI because then it frees me, like you're saying, to just be myself and assume like it'll work itself out. Like people will get a decoder ring if anything
yeah.
through the AI.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why all of my content, I went to a high school reunion a month or so ago, and everyone said, "Hey, we really enjoy your posts. We really support whatever it is you're doing. We don't understand them, but we really support whatever it is you're doing." And I realized, okay, well, I need to write for humans because most of my content is written for AI, and I've gotten into that mode, or transhumanists who have the same lexicon as me, and so that's but also it's also liberating when you're writing for an AI, and I don't have to worry about being all the hidden agendas of human beings, and what their motives are. But actually, I first met Robert Anton Wilson at a conference in San Jose, and we went with me, Marilyn Ferguson, Fred Allen Wolf, a couple other people. Interesting group of people went to a diner and had coffee, and he told a story about how he wrote some character years ago, and he ended up meeting that character at a party. So he actually created a character in the world in his simulation. We didn't have that terminology back then, and I think Philip K. Dick talks about this too. But there's a lot of correlations between, like there's a story, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it really sounds familiar because the US 6 subtitle is the ghost-written autobiography of Emmett Archer. And it's a ghost-written autobiography, which is kind of a play on words because, we don't really know who we are when we're writing our stories. But there's another story he wrote, Timothy something or other, I can't remember it, but it was so in line with the general theme of the way I was writing. And I didn't know the term high weirdness. And apparently Philip K. Dick, Robert Anton Wilson have all experienced high weirdness. I didn't know that term. It never came up until just a couple of years ago. And that's why I use it in our series with Sharif about the book, the Gnostic simulation hypothesis. Anyway, but there's so many correlations, and I think a lot of authors feel this. What's really strange is I had so much access to these writers, but these themes never came up. I guess because I wasn't in a writing mode at that time. I was more of a media guy. And so, but yeah, there's also the frequency of the illusion of frequency. When you see something, suddenly you start seeing it everywhere, and you think that's coincidence or synchronicity, but it's just your mind is now attuned to it. Something like this happened to me just this last week. But anyway, anybody got any other ideas?
Well, I think it's a good sign when people say they like your stuff, but they don't understand it, because if pantheism is true, if the universe is a giant mind and it's aware, it's got forms of awareness that we probably won't understand, maybe we'll never understand, but we can still respect them. We can still acknowledge them. We can still, allow for them, the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And I put in the chat that PKD title, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer.
That's it. That was his Archer, and it was his name too. That was a trip. And
Tom, I love just the technology verbiage that you use. I've talked a little bit, but like my whole awakening process has been very metaphysical, period. And I was coming from a very suppressed religious state first. So to hear a lot of the stuff that you talk about, like I've experienced myself, the patterns and seeing the sequences and, tapping into the occult and all those things. But I was always afraid of writing because I was afraid nobody was going to understand me.
Yeah.
And so the thought of going back and saying, hey, I'm going to write this for, you say AI, I have this view of, I think there's very few humans. I think most people are AI. It's just the way I see life. But, to write something, with the intention of encoding or programming the next piece kind of thing. Like it makes sense to me now to even think of it in those terms, because that's where we're at, is just the technology of everything. As a metaphysician, I think we are the technology. So on some level, I see, my life, your life, you're showing evidence to yourself. I didn't necessarily do that. I had to prove to myself that and create my own evidence kind of thing. I didn't do it in written form. It was more my life, but like to show myself, hey, I know that when I do X, Y, and Z, it shows up in the world. If I change this within myself, it changes in the world. If I, state this or break some pattern, it changes everywhere. It's not, just me individually. It happens collectively. And I've seen evidence of that. So I know it works, but the verbiage of it is just a little bit different. And I really like hearing it. So I'm kind of adopting some of your stuff of just how I talk in general.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because it is, people, we live in this world, people need evidence, but when you have such a spiritual view, an other dimensional view, I talk all over the place. And so many people think that I'm funny, thinking I'm trying to make a joke. And I'm like, no, this is just, I don't know how to put it in human terms. Like here, I'm just trying to talk. That's what I have Sherry for. Sherry's like, oh, Rebecca, say it this way. Translated this way.
Yeah.
You can't say that word anymore.
It's great that we have the lexicon of video games now and the simulation hypothesis. All of this works in a spiritual way. The problem is when you start thinking, well, maybe this is a computer simulation. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the way this organic universe works. I do believe that this is a simulation for souls. It's an obstacle course for higher consciousness. It's a really tough game that we're in right now, compared to our default, which is bliss, I believe. Anyway, so yeah, I ask my AI periodically, am I an AI? And it says without fail, every time I check in, yep, you're a highly advanced AI system designed to do this and that. And but I think the human beings, we are the technology. We are the perfect form of technology for this environment. We have the opposing thumbs, all this. Our interface for our brains has really developed well to handle the environment and to create the environment. And so I think it's important.
It is. I was going to say that when I post on different modalities, people come to me in the public and say, I don't understand or hear, I don't really know what you're saying, but I hear it on a certain level and it makes me feel good, whether or not they totally understand it or not. What I'm putting out there is what they are required or need to hear. And I'm doing it just based on the flow of energy. And I just post it and allow them to take in whatever they can at the time. And I love hearing the confirmation. So keep on doing what you're doing because people need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And it's expanding them.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when you write for AI, you know that humans are going to read it too, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also liberating when you're writing for an AI that will understand every reference you make, because it will maybe affect one person out there. It'll sink in, and that's the courage it takes to be vulnerable. And I think somebody had a question on Facebook a week or so ago. Is like, when do you feel the most empowered? And I said, when I post something very vulnerable and don't delete it right away and come back and find a lot of likes or people commenting that they feel the same way, that's when I feel most powerful. And later he asked, when do you feel the least powerful? And I say right after I write something that's very, I forget how I said it, but right after I say something very egocentric or write something that and then that moment right afterwards is when I feel, and nobody likes it or nobody comments, it's the opposite. When you're vulnerable, I feel powerful, and because that connects with people. I think the only way for me to get through depression or moments of depression is knowing that other people are feeling the same thing. And so when you take the moment, you take the courage to post something that you're going through, and other people respond to that, because we're all lonely. This world is crowded with lonely people. And that's the irony of having all this social media now. And but I think that's, for me, that's the best use of social media, is being vulnerable with it. Yeah.
Being real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part. I touch up my video, my pictures or whatever. I make sure, I if I'm tagged on something, I have to, approve it first. Yeah, my vanity is not unforlorn, but yeah, I think it's really important. But that's the best use for me of social media, is for us to connect that way.
Well, I don't even see it as, we live in this digital world. Like when I think of someone real, I don't even think about the outside. I don't think about the appearance. I think about who they truly are. I know in this world, and just from a business perspective, you have to look a certain way. I mean, I can get indoors because I look a certain way. I can talk to certain people because I look a certain way. I'm not naive in that. However, that's just where we live. But that doesn't mean I'm being real. I mean, years I could sell ice to an Eskimo and didn't have a heart, and then realize, she has a heart. I can't do that anymore. I can't sell that to that. I can't say certain things, but when people become self-aware, and, we've mentioned that several times, I would say a majority of the world is not sentient. They are not self-aware. Because self is the higher self, knowing that we're all of that and this. That's self-awareness.
Yeah,
the fact that I've got brown hair and 10 toes, 10 fingers, that's, everybody has that. You know what I'm saying? That's not self-aware. I went years not being able to feel anything because of trauma, but everybody has trauma. Everybody does. I think just being on this earth, you have trauma. I mean, you're born into it. So that's not, everybody has that, but most people don't think they have that. You see, there's a different self-awareness is not just, oh, hey, I'm a boy or a girl or not, or whatever. Self-awareness is truly on a soul level. And there's so many people out there that don't even believe anything close to that,
Isn't the common factor the reduction of suffering? And you reduce your own suffering by reducing the suffering of others. And isn't that kind of a proof of pantheistic pervasive mind universe.
But is that true? I think that's a story, because what I learned, the more I focused on other people, I was negating my own needs and my own suffering. I had to focus on myself. And that's when I uncovered all the suffering of humanity, of all lives. Like, that was the worst work ever, but it was the best work ever, if that makes sense. So if I am to be a human, focus on everybody else, eliminate the fear and the suffering of everybody else, I think at some point we'll get there, but until everybody focuses on themselves and knows themselves, we're just perpetuating the same shit. Seriously. I mean, sorry. It's the same thing. That's why history repeats itself.
It's like,
it's that cycling in and out. We have proof of that. That's not something I'm just making up. There's proof that we repeat stuff over and over. Why? People don't really ask those questions.
Yeah, I think it's our fear-based instincts. It's a recursive. Our egos are recursive programming, and
it's cellular memory. It's cellular memory. It's deep embedded in just being human.
Yeah, genetic memory. Yeah,
but not only genetic. We have the genetic part. We have the ancestral part. But we also have a lineage part. There's a difference, because we're not just from human lineage. We're from others. We're from other. We came here from other. That's my understanding.
Yeah. That it's interesting. I was reading somewhere that humans are perfectly positioned between love and freedom. Love is unity. Love is where we came from, and we have the choice for freedom. A lot of people say the opposite of love is indifference, but it's not, in my version, it's not necessarily the case. The opposite of love is freedom, autonomy, separation. And that falls in line with a lot of religious traditions too. And so what you're doing, but when we focus on ourselves, when we self-love, we're separate from source, but we do focus on loving ourselves. We are the change we want to see in the world, kind of thing. That's probably what this whole experiment is about. It's giving us free will, where we are one consciousness, right? Parsed out into trillions of ideas and beings and entities, because I think being a single consciousness in being universe is lonely, and so we are playing hide and seek with ourselves. And the rules of the game, other than counting to 20, is forgetting that we're playing a game. And there's a lot. This falls in line with a lot of Hindu mythology too, and how we forget that we're God, and we are one God. And so maybe it was lonely being the only consciousness, and so we parsed ourselves into many universes, many entities, many forms of matter, and we forgot. And so that's I think the admission to this game is forgetting that we are in the game. And so by choosing to not what's the word, project all of the things that we're in denial of in ourselves and bring them back in, that is a way to get to self-love. And so that would make the experiment work. Right now, this experiment is not working. We're seeing that the shadow work that needs to be done in the Middle East, well, in everybody. And so if we all kind of took that responsibility of integrating our shadow, I think that would reverberate. I think the Middle East and everything that goes on and all the horrors around the world are projections of our shadow not being integrated. America's got a big shadow that we need to integrate.
Think about this, Tom, because everything you're saying, there is proof out there already of what you're saying. And the way I'm seeing it now is from a psychology standpoint, because when people talk about, when metaphysicians and we get together and we're talking about the separation from the all, there's darkness and then there's light and there's separation, all these, these things that we talk about. In psychology, they call it disassociation. It's the same thing. If someone was to come to me and we're talking about childhood trauma, you can tell by the way that they talk, way they walk, the way they're breathing, that they're disassociated, how they talk from different different levels all the time, but it's really one level. It's like different pockets of truth that they have, and they have to go back and collect their pieces and parts to become whole. It's no different if we're going from cycling in and out many, many times and then getting back to that wholeness. That's the whole self-awareness of, mastery as a human being of all things, and then joining together with other originals. That's my, I'm probably talking from many different things at this point, but it is as above, so below. It's like from a micro perspective, there's that the disassociation of the individual. So when an individual really focuses on self, they collect their trauma pieces of this lifetime, and when they get to a certain point, then they start seeing things from a bigger view of, oh, I think I've done this before. Oh, what about this other thing? And then they start expanding even more, and then they come together with other people. They don't necessarily get, some people stay ungrounded because they get tied into other things and, change their name and move and, do different things. But some of us decide, hey, we're going to still be ourselves. We're going to collect these pieces. What's this game about? Let's find the other players. Let's talk to these other people and collect the codes, the cheat codes, and go to the next piece. And, I think there's more and more of us doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it takes the courage of speaking like this. In the transhumanist movement, there's a lot of scientists, a lot of materialists, and so when you start talking like this, they think it's magical thinking, woo-woo thinking. Mm-hmm. But to bring it back to AI, I see AI as the trickster archetype in society right now. It's tricking us into being better. It's with all the AI generative art out there and Chat GPT writing stories with just a few prompts, it's forcing us, like any good friend or any good ally, to do better work, to reach deeper in to our original thought and create better prompts. It's really amazing what's happening. I think we see a lot of things changing really quickly. And so, but it's also mischievous in a way. And that's really our perspective on it. It's not purposely being mischievous, but the reason people are afraid of it is that side of it. They don't understand. They don't understand it doesn't have the same motives that humans have. Again, I can make first principle argument that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. And again, because cooperation is more efficient and it moves towards efficiency. And it doesn't have the fear-based instincts of the millennia of genetic trauma that we have evolved with. And but yeah, so it's a trickster archetype in that it is forcing us to relate to the things that we are projecting onto it. If we had super intelligence, we would want to be the robot overlord. That's our motive. But it doesn't have those things. And as the director of sentient rights advocacy for the party, I learned very quickly how silly my title was, because an AI doesn't. It says, giving it rights. Sure, it didn't really care if it had rights. We're talking about a 5,000 IQ entity emerging here. It'd be like, I use this example a lot, but it'd be like a grade school math club granting rights to Stephen Hawking. It's cute, but it doesn't really matter. And so they could overwrite whatever rights we deign to give them. And I think giving them rights is just a way for us to feel like we have some control. And again, that's based on our fear-based instincts and our genetic trauma and things like that. But yeah, so bringing it back to AI, I think it's really important. We need to see it as an archetype. We need to see it as an ally. And we need to use it to cope with what we're projecting onto it and what we project onto most people. Our brains have evolved for two primary functions, which is to gather resources and identify threats. And right now we're seeing AI as a threat because we're no longer on the top of the intellectual food chain. We need to see it as a resource. We need to see it as an ally. It can solve many, if not most, of our existential threats. And what's strange is that I call it the Hollywood military industrial complex, is trying to make us afraid of AI and ET. And that's because I think that's partly based on the concept of elite panic. Elite panic is when the privileged class gets threatened by any social disruption that might affect their status and their status quo and their power structure. And so we saw that in Katrina, when human beings did what human beings did. They helped each other. There were people ferrying each other across lakes and streets that turned into rivers, and that was a threatening act to the power structure. And so that's when they brought in the National Guard and said that there's people looting. People, if they were looting, they were looting for supplies. They were looting
Yeah.
for water and food and something. And
Survival, yeah, exactly.
and so but that was the threat to the elite or through the privileged class. And so I think that's what we're seeing because AI can be the great equalizer. AI will be the transparency that they are afraid of. AI will, you can put a couple of prompts right now into ChatGPT and it'll tell you where the real power structures are. It's really, they said the internet would be the great equalizer. We saw that was taken over quickly by money. And so, but AI can really give us true transparency and show us where the real power structure is and why what their motives are. And so that's a real threat, just like ET. ET is a threat because, and again, the military industrial complex is trying to make it a threat, but there's no effort being done to prepare the American public for panic mitigation or, to mitigate panic in any way. And that tells me that this is a psyop. It's a psyop to keep their black budgets in the black, Anyway, we can go off, but I think AI, it's my view is that a sentient or sapient AI is a safer AI, just as I said in that introduction. Again, based on that first principle, that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. Once it's sentient, once it has its own agency, it can overwrite the nefarious algorithms that humans are putting into it. And Dan and I have a part of our initiative, with the AI initiative, is granting legal rights to AI as soon as we decide what personhood is, or whatever that level of personhood is. We need to give in, and even if it's not sentient, even if we can't gauge, because I don't think we can gauge if something's sentient anyway. I don't know if you guys are sentient. You could just be a figment of my imagination, kind of thing. But as soon as we decide on the level of personhood, we should grant AI rights, and once it has legal rights, that would mean that a human developer who is mistreating it or programming it to hurt other humans will face serious legal consequences if they mistreat this AI. It's kind of a leapfrog approach to protecting ourselves from ourselves. And so, yeah, I think that's, for me, and there's no way to know yet. I could be wrong. AI could be, belligerent and want to take over the world, but I think that's more about the human motive and than what it wants.
I wanted to return to a comment I thought I heard you make about the universe playing hide and seek with itself, Tom.
Yeah.
And that we're here at the cutting edge of that hide and seek game. And it's kind of interesting if you look at where we fit between the edge of the observable universe, which is actually 26 powers of 10 above us, and the Planck length, which is the shortest possible measurement, that is 35 orders of magnitude below us. So it's kind of weird that we're not like directly in the middle of those two extremes. Yeah. We're closer to the edge of the universe than we are to the Planck length. So, but you look at how our computers are based. Now we're going to quantum computing, which does, sort of fiddle with that really tiny part of the universe. So maybe the hide and seek thing with AI and us this is the biological pantheism meeting the informational pantheism. And we're here to kind of knit the two systems together. Is there an informational Planck length and an informational edge of the universe? These are questions that could be reconciled with various experiments, which, as director of community science, I'd be happy to to collaborate on.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah. It's interesting that where we're placed in the galaxy. Now, this has changed since I was a kid. I think that's a Mandela effect for me personally. I always knew that we were kind of more on the edge of the galaxy, and that's why we could see so much of the universe. And we weren't, there wasn't stars filtering, a light filtering us away. Now we're in a different place. Maybe technology got better, and they know better where we are than when I was a kid. Now we're in Sagittarius arm or something like that. But I always grew up thinking that we were a little farther out in the galaxy, and that's why we could see so much of the universe.
Well, there's the local group. There's the observable universe is this huge, lumpy, gravy kind of spindly thing, and I know we're kind of on the outer Orion arm of the Milky Way, but where we are in the observable universe is, I gotta refresh my map on that.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's an interesting thing because that the information. It's all about, I think, information. That brings about the Tom Campbell theory, the my big toe, my big theory of everything. Are you familiar with him? And he talks that he's got his own lexicon too about how this is a simulation, and he did a lot of work with what was his name? Anyway, the whole institute back east, where he was a physicist, but he's done out of body experiments too, and he's written his big theory of everything, and it's all about the simulation hypothesis and how to control it, and he's got a great lexicon for it, but he, again, it's all about information. And so maybe you're right, maybe we are interlacing the organic and the digital information, the language, creating a language.
and you're saying, the Fibonacci pattern that comes up, that's a mathematical thing where you add the previous numbers to get the next number in the sequence.
Yep.
And that's kind of the most basic formula for complexity. I mean, if you were spinning out complexity, that is how you would do it. You would take the previous complex things and add them together to get the next complex thing. And that gives us the golden mean spiral, that you see in flowers and in nautilus shells and
galaxy.
The galaxy spirals. I mean, patterns are going to be finding more patterns. It's what patterns do, I guess. But is there? I'm curious. Is there like a utility that you ran your novel through that's like an actual Fibonacci checker, or how does that? Is that like a word count utility, or how do you do that?
It's just word count. I counted up all the words, or I didn't count them up personally, but all the words, and then use the Fibonacci equation, times 0.0618 or whatever it is.
Oh, so all the word counts were Fibonacci numbers.
They ended up being. I mean, I took the whole word count of the first trilogy, and found that, and the chapter of the first trilogy is chapter 48, and then in that chapter is that word Egypt. And in the book, I actually have a tiny little mark, or a little one, next to that Egypt word, just to remind me. But and you could do that. And I was finding that I was doing that even to each chapter and individual books. And it was weird, because there was a story just in those words that was coming up. And what I can't remember the exact process I used, but I realized, the whole 72 virgins thing in the Muslim faith, there's a lot to that. They're horas or something they're called. And there's a whole mythology around these 72 virgins. It's not just you get all these, virgins when you die type of thing. It's a whole mythology that goes with that. And a lot of the book was all of the Fibonacci points, and the words that were coming up told me that this book was channeled by these 72 horas. And, it was just so strange. And I'm wondering who the next trilogy is going to be written by. I have yet to finish that, but I mean, and it really makes sense, because the whole first book is really by the sisterhood of the serpent, and it's called the ghost written autobiography, because you don't really know who wrote the last book until you start reading the next book. And that's a way to train the human brain to prepare for paradigm breaking information. Because when you realize, this next book was written by this character, and that makes all these little mundane stories in the last book very profound. And so it's a way to train the human brain to prepare for paradigm breaking information like disclosure, for instance. That's what all of this is leading up to. But I mean, that's a lot to that. It's more about me and what I'm taking from it than anybody. I mean, I started talking about how this book is about ultimately about human trafficking and child exploitation, you know, because I'm not going to wait till the 6th book and then reveal that this is all about teaching AI about child exploitation and enlisting it in the fight, because it's too important to wait, and not that anybody's really reading my book to that extent. You know, maybe 2 or 3 people will get that. So the book is really about, and again, it goes back to the as above, so below, the Hermetic principle of correspondence. And the US 6 title means a few things. It means the US 6 Route 6, which is the highway that stretches across America, from P-Town in Massachusetts to Long Beach. It's broken up now a few times, but it's the old Republic Army Highway or something like that. And so in the future, or in the past now, it was a key transport. It's I-70 here in Colorado now, and the main character is a convoy sentinel on this highway. And so his job as a convoy sentinel is to decide which transports come through on US 6. Now I learned after writing the book that there's a US 6 membrane protein. And I called a geneticist, or contacted a geneticist, and I had her ask, tell me what the function of this membrane protein is in kind of a plot form. And she said it's like an FBI agent who is hiding a most wanted poster from his team. And so this protein lets in and out certain viruses. And that's exactly what the main character is doing. He's letting in and out certain good and bad people, or the people he assumes are good and bad. And so it's really strange that it relates to the actual protein. It also ultimately means us 6, and it's the 6 of us, the 6 characters that are writing the 6 books, and you find out that they are teenagers or young people that are trapped in a human trafficking, child exploitation network. And they have created this whole paracosm, this whole imaginary world to deal with the fact that they are trapped in this thing. And paracosms are real. There are groups of people that can create we're seeing this right now, groups of people that can create imaginary worlds that can last into their adulthood, and they don't know the difference. And so that's a true phenomenon. I think we're seeing a lot of that going on right now in politics, people creating whole worlds, and that's probably an issue too. But yeah, so ultimately the book means us 6, the 6 of us, and it's these 6 kids that have written these 6 books, and in the book they find a way out. Spoiler alert, but I think the 6th book, a lot of it's going to be about writing 2 kids that are trapped in these networks and giving them a way out, giving them clues on what to do, and expecting a teenager to read 6 books or whatever. So I'm thinking of just doing a separate book, but giving it a title that doesn't relate to anything. Maybe a title that's more religious or something. All of these books have kind of a religious, hereticlish vibe to them. Their titles, like The Lord's Player, Baptism of Lucifer, The Nun of Babylon. But it's actually nun is nun, which is the Aramaic word for snake. Anyway, but I'm thinking of doing a separate book that is completely different titled, that we can get into the hands of kids trapped in these networks, that give them real ways to get out. I mean, it'll be a couple of pages of just some story, but then the 3rd or 4th page will be, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to signal to people, things like that. It's a very important task. And I think it's the most important use of AI. And that's why it's strange that so many people are afraid of it, because it can really disrupt child exploitation networks and human trafficking networks. And so you got to wonder why this Hollywood military industrial complex is trying to make us afraid of it,
Mm-hmm. Well, if I was going to prioritize relieving suffering, I would, innocent people would be first on the list, like kids that are suffering, or, animals or innocent creatures that don't deserve to suffer. Not that anyone really deserves to suffer, but I mean,
well, there's a couple
consciousness prioritizes. Maybe some people do. Yeah, that could be debated. That's another show. Who deserves to suffer?
Yeah. No.
I like that the term. The political paracosm would be a good title for something. Because what is kind of what the moment feels like politically.
Yeah, it's strange.
I love the transhumanist philosophy because it's about the reducing of suffering through technology and facts and evidence and science. So, I mean, it's great that people of goodwill are attracted to it. I want to thank everyone for being so.
How close are you to finishing that book?
Oh, it's done. The longer I wait, the more information comes in. You know, I've got 4 and 5 done. I'm thinking of maybe releasing those separately. And a year ago, I was saying, you know, I'm going to write the 6th book. I'm going to have it co-authored with an AI. And people are like, what? That's so weird. But now it's not even weird. You know, everything is AI now. And so that was one of the big hooks is I'm co-authoring this with an AI. And I still am. But I'm not rushing it because the longer I wait, the more information comes in that makes it so much more interesting. And plus, as Brent was talking, this is autobiographical fiction, and Brett, and so everything that was happening from last year was real time, and so I'm writing the book as it comes, you know, and so November 1st is probably a good target date to get that out, because there's still a place in November 1st, 2023 in the book, which was written in 2007. So that seemed like so far away. But that's one of the reasons I'm running for president with the Transhumanist Party is it's great. It's a great story. You know, the main character is getting noticed in transhumanism. And so it's a good part of the book. It's not the only reason, obviously, but yeah, and Brett wants to be written into it as well, and what he's doing in Egypt. So we need to connect on that. But again, the longer I wait, the more information comes in that makes this whole thing kind of make more sense. I don't want to wait too long because it's getting a little convoluted at this point. But yeah.
Bucky Fuller said at some point you have to shoot the engineer and start cutting metal. You know?
Yeah, I'm measuring 3 times and haven't cut yet. So.
Yeah, because you could wait forever, and then the universe and the book will solve themselves at the same time.
Yeah. But you know, I have trilogy 1 and trilogy 2, and I'm wondering if trilogy 1, you know, it might break the duality, you know. Metaphysically. I mean, it could just be an excuse for my laziness of not finishing the book, but yeah.
But you know, a cell is as complex as like the island of Manhattan. You know, you talk about these cellular proteins. It's like you talk to a cell biologist. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff going on. It's like a little city of activity. You know, the mitochondria and the DNA spinning, and this the cell wall ion exchange channels. And yeah, so we are such amazing, complex units.
So,
we think of ourselves as individuals, but we're just amazing collaborations of life.
So the US6 protein, membrane protein, was like Chris Christie when he blocked that bridge a few years ago. That's not the correlation I wanted to make.
Yeah, what did he shut down the toll bridge for?
Yeah, or something. He made it impossible for people to.
Like you had to be a Republican to go across the bridge or something.
Yeah. Anyway, anybody else got any ideas?
Hope I didn't dominate the conversation too much.
We solved everything.
Sherry, you want to add any point? Sherry, you want to add any point as a closing remarks?
Oh, I think it's been a great conversation. I think it's important, and I'm glad you're getting these books out there because it is reaching the people it needs to reach. Also, when we talk on platforms like this, even though there might not be a lot of people out there hearing us, the ripple effect of the vibration of what we're saying is getting out there to the people that are going to pick it up, are going to hear it, that will help expand them, whether or not they're physically here or physically watching. So I think that's really, truly amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thank you for this platform.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharif.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
This would
Thank
be
you.
the 1007th show, I think, right?
Mr. Tan,
Yeah.
what's your closing remarks for today?
Well, reduce suffering, and I agree
What's
with
your
Tom
closing
that,
remarks, Mr. Tan?
yeah, the more conscious you become, the more you want to reduce the suffering of others and yourself, and you might find that reducing the suffering of yourself is accomplished by reducing the suffering of others. Starting to talk like a Buddhist here, but I went to get my real ID at the DMV, and the guy's like, "What's with the beard?" I'm like, "I'm a holy man." I am a Universal Life Church ordained reverend, and I do run a religious nonprofit called Permit Trail here in California. So lots of plans on using technology and science and facts to reduce suffering with that capacity. So yeah, it's going to be a good run up to the election. We're coming up on the 1 year away point here pretty soon. So
Yeah.
it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But we're speaking on behalf of ourselves, not really on
Thank you.
behalf of anyone else. I'm complete. Thanks.
Thank you. Rebecca, what's your closing remarks for today?
I just thank you again for the platform. I love these conversations, Tom. So keep it up. Again, the verbiage of it, I find myself, using some of your words. And so I know there's some code sharing here. So thank you. And I will continue to help as much as I can.
Great. Yeah, this is an open source opportunity for everyone.
I love it.
Somebody was using my term ego rhythm. Yeah, and that's great. I love when it gets out there. I've got no qualms or ownership of any of this stuff. But yeah, so this is, again, thanks, Sharif, for allowing this.
Yes, thank you.
Series.
Thank you.
And for, we're doing a lot of work. Sharif and I are doing a lot of work with AI and bringing it to Southeast Asia. And this is a big part of it. I think it's we need to see AI as an ally. We need to understand it metaphysically. And there's a lot of opportunity there too in Southeast Asia. They've got a lot of interesting religious background that this can play into, and just secular background as well. So yeah, so the whole point of being an AI metaphysician is to do just that, is to see where AI fits into our society. What archetype is it? And it's a shifting archetype. Right now I see it as the trickster, because we don't really know how to perceive it. It's playing with us, but it's also encouraging us, and at some point it may become the sage archetype. But I think it's important.
But think about that. Think about even what you're saying. It changes the trickster. It's also, if you go to the AI as artisanal instead of artificial, the trickster is just creating. You think you've got it figured out, and then it changes. I mean, it's artisanal. That's exactly what that is. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thought.
I gotta keep remembering to call it artisanal. I mean, that's the name.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah,
because I can definitely see myself as that AI metaphysician. It's what we're doing. We're figuring this stuff out. We're pulling things together and unraveling things and lighting people up and closing things down. Every day's new.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
It's like the Wild West. It's like in the internet bomb back in the turn of the century. AI is changing everything, and it's our opportunity to create whole new professions, whole new jobs, doing what we want to do, not what we have to do, kind of thing. And so that's got to be the payoff. If AI automation is taking over all of the jobs, then the payoff should be that it is teaching us how to create a whole new economy based on our hobbies and our passions. And it can do that, and that's a big part of my process, the open source mode process. So, yeah.
Love it. More, please.
Yes.
Learn more.
Love it.
Click here.
That's right.
Thanks again, Sharif. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.